So what is AI? I like to start with a definition, right? Artificial intelligence, you know, we could have almost like a whole thing about like what is intelligence, what is knowledge, right? Like a whole philosophical debate. But the definition here is basically computer systems designed to mimic human intelligence at its sort of fundamental level. Sounds easy, is not easy to replicate, right? The goal is that. And so it is a way of making software think intelligently in a similar manner to the way intelligent humans think. That's kind of what we're getting at. That's sort of the goal, and that's probably the best definition of it, but as you can see, it's still fuzzy. Because what is intelligence, right? So we're not going to debate that, but that's something you should think about. Write it down. How would you define intelligence? And I'm not talking about, we've had IQ, EQ. I heard another one recently, like TQ, I think it was a technology quotient, you know, like, or technical quotient. So like people are coming up with all these things, so intelligence is what that is. Now, brief history, here's an infographic. AI is not new. How many of us have cruise control on our cars? That's a form of AI. How many, you know, the lane changing things, make sure you stay in your lanes, right? How many of us might have an iRobot or something that does a thing that maps your home and then cleans, and, you know, like, these are all small little pieces of artificial intelligence, machine learning, that are part of our lives today. So this is not new. Sort of, it's the confluence of a lot of things coming together, and we've reached a tipping point. And now we're all getting pretty scared because now they're becoming more intelligent. These were kind of dumb. These were like little babies, little kids, right? So it's been around for a long time. I'm not going to go with everything. You have this. I want to talk about two kinds of AI and terminology that's being thrown around a lot. So the first one you probably haven't heard is called artificial narrow intelligence. And this is really this idea of a machine's ability to perform a single task, do something very, very specific, very well, and that's pretty much it. And it can do it better than humans. Just one task. That's what we call narrow AI. Generally speaking, and maybe even a few tasks, but it's narrow. It can't go out into the world and live. Artificial general intelligence, often referred to as AGI. You might be hearing this a lot, and people are like, oh yeah, we're gonna hit AGI in 5 years. Well, this is this idea that machines can be made to think and functions as the human mind, right? Now, Sam Altman of OpenAI is like, we're going to achieve this in certain areas, in certain ways. I don't think a true artificial general intelligence is a machine that I could like throw out there and it could figure out how to like navigate the hallways and come in here and do things. I think we're very, very far away from that right now. But we have machines that can do a lot. And as people redefine AGI, they're saying, oh, we're almost there. So when you hear we're at artificial general intelligence, my first question to anyone before I say yes or no is, how are you defining that? Because I think it's about the definition as to how they're defining it. So artificial general intelligence really is that's the Terminator thing, right? Like they can take care of it, they can do everything, they can take over the world. We're kind of far away from that. I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. Okay, so why are you here? Why is this important? Why does Rochelle think you need to know about AI? AI for business leaders, it really helps you with decision making. It helps you be more strategic. It helps you actually, there's this thing that many of you may have heard of, working in the business versus working on the business. AI can actually free up a lot of the in the business stuff and do that more quickly, so you have more time to work on the business, be more strategic, get more customers, do more business development, grow your business. And so it's really important about foresight, data-driven strategies, taking data and doing data analysis. Many of us are like, I'm crappy at data analysis. I'm not really good at it. Well, now you have a really cool assistant to help you with that, right? And then really it's just a literacy thing. I believe that much like the internet, like, is there anybody that you know who doesn't know how to use the internet today? Well, I can tell you 30 years ago, there were lots of people who didn't know how to use the internet. But we all learned how to do it. I think AI is going to be even more impactful around workflows and how we do things. So that's why I think it's important. Okay, major buckets of AI. So we have artificial intelligence. This is Rochelle. I know we have someone like a few people here who are very technical. I simplify things, so just keep that in mind. I like to think of AI in two buckets. One bucket is basically machine learning. And machine learning has historically been this idea that it's kind of like a recipe. When this happens, this is what you should do, and this is what's going to happen. And it learns from patterns, from historical data. If the fire alarm goes off, then you send the fire trucks to come and put the fire out, right? Like, that's machine learning, and it can see that pattern over and over again. What's really, the reason I'm here today is the second bucket called generative AI. And this is what's freaking everybody out, because it's not exactly based on what has been done in the past. It's actually taking those things and mashing them up and coming up with something new. That's what the generative part is. It's generating new ideas, new concepts. It's bringing things together in new ways. And that's kind of scary and exciting, right? Because with machine learning, it was just literally a recipe. It was following instructions and automating things. That's great. Generative, we don't know what it's going to do, right? But that's kind of also what we do as humans, right? That's where innovation happens. So that's kind of generative AI. It's generating things. The big player is ChatGPT. The GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So what that means is that it is a model that is trained on a body of information that it has. Those were the trillions, of parameters that David was talking about. And it gets trained on all that stuff, and then it transforms all that stuff and often comes up with something new. One of the challenges with a lot of these large language models is that they train them and then they stop, right? And so now they can access the internet and get more current information, but what they've been trained on is the body of knowledge. So they're not always learning new tools necessarily, quite in the same way that they do that first big grouping of information. So again, it can do read, write, and understand words. It also it's trained on lots of information. So I've talked about this already. It gives answers based on prompts. So prompt engineering, I think, is the new skill. The new skill is, how good a question can you ask? And to be honest with you, that's also a really, really, really great tool and skill to have in person. I have to work a room. I have to meet all of you. What's the best way for me to do that? Go up to you and ask a question. So it's not just for doing this. Prompting is a really great skill, even in human-to-human interactions, right? But prompt engineering, questions, tasks, things along those lines. It understands context. So if I ask it a question and then I do a whole bunch of things, 10 minutes later, it will remember what it said 10 minutes ago. That's kind of cool, right? So you don't have to keep sort of doing things. It also the output is often dependent on the input. I would say garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you ask it something generic like, hey, ChatGPT, give me a marketing plan, it will give you probably the most generic marketing plan you can ever think of, right? It'll give you something, but it's not going to be good. If you say, I want a marketing plan that targets this audience, that basically deals with these behaviors, these fears, these pain points, and you go on with details, oh, now you're going to get something juicy. So the more specific you can be, the better the answers you will receive, right? And finally, prompt engineering, it does require some really, thoughtful pieces to get the results that you want. And sometimes that's hard because we don't think that precisely, right? So you want to be precise. So again, now, I heard this over on my table, hallucinations. How many of you have heard about hallucinations? Okay, so this is a term you'll hear with ChatGPT. It lies. It tells me stuff that isn't true. Okay, well, here's my thought. Rochelle has sort of like the human side of it. Have you ever been in a room with a colleague who is maybe a very seasoned person in their industry who says, I know how this works, and this is what is true, and you might be the junior person in the room and you look and you go, that's crap, right? But it's based on their experience, and so we as human beings hallucinate, right? It's not doing anything any differently. It's taking what it knows, it's coming up with a plausible reaction, an answer, but it really may or may not be true. So always verify and validate anything that you get out of ChatGPT. If it says, oh, there's a business that's doing this and its name is ABC Company, go do a Google search and make sure that that ABC Company actually exists, because that may not be true. Now, my trick around this is whenever I ask for facts from ChatGPT, I always say use Bing, comma, and then I tell it what I want it to do. So it actually is accessing the internet. And as of this week, everybody, even the free version of ChatGPT, has access to that thing. It used to be you had to pay for it. Now everybody has access to it. So just make sure you say use Bing, which is the search engine that it can use, so that it actually is going to the internet to do its searches versus just asking it to do that without going to the internet. That's a little workaround that I've learned. Okay, bunch of large language models. What are large language models? In essence, they are the engines behind many of the chatbots we've heard about. So these are the things that are doing all the tools. So OpenAI has ChatGPT-4, Gemini is Google's version, Claude is a company called Anthropic, Llama 2 is Meta, or Facebook, from Facebook Meta's group. I brought up Cohere because they're a Canadian company, yay! We have a Canadian company that is focusing on enterprises, so they're working with large companies, creating their own kind of chatbots. So I just wanted to give you a list of them. We're not going to go into them, but these are the engines behind it. What's interesting is most of them are doing the same thing. There is a tool called, I don't have it here, but it's called gmtech.com. You have to pay for it, $20 a month, but you can do a prompt and it will put it against all of the different chatbots and show you all the answers at the same time. Interestingly, a really quick thing that we do is we'll say, give me a random number between 0 or between 1 and 100. It did this with a variety of these different things. 6 of them came back with the number 42. Because if anyone is a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that is something that it came back. 2 of them came back with 43, and the 3rd one came back with 41. So really, sometimes when people are like, oh, ChatGPT is the best, or Perplexity is the best, or whatever, and I'll give you a list of what they are. They're all kind of the same. They're all not that different. But you can see it side by side, so that's a really cool tool. Prompt engineering, great techniques. We don't have time today. I'm hoping that maybe in one of the upcoming sessions, you can dive deep into that, delve into it, whatever. The reason we're making fun of dive and deep is that there are certain words that we're finding have disproportionately been used when you type things into ChatGPT. Delve is one of them. Dive into, sometimes as much. So for me, it's if I see harness, demystified, transformative, all of these, like who said demystified before? Like, whoever used that word, right? But now you see it everywhere. Demystify AI, demystify everything, or transformative. So that's why we're joking about it, because there are certain words that seem to be disproportionately used in AI-generated context. Prompt engineering techniques. I don't have time to it, but I created my own sort of prompt framework that can walk you through how to build a really, really solid prompt. It's called the Imagine Framework. In the handouts, you will see I have a link to a webinar that I did on this, as well as the handouts, so please feel free to do that. But basically, I've broken it up. I called it Imagine, and it really breaks down how do you build a very strong prompt to get the answers that you want. Some of you may be like, I don't want to learn this, Rochelle, and that's okay. I don't expect everybody to do that, but if you're interested, please feel free, it's in the handouts. So it basically is you identify a character, ChatGPT, you are an expert in social media. Now, tell me how I can basically, or you're an Instagram social media expert. Now it has some context, and then from there you ask it questions about how to do your Instagram social media content, right? So give it that framework, that context, right? I have lots of examples, lots of words, lots of things, and actually in the appendix, I have all the slides for that as well, so you can kind of go crazy. So let's get into the cool stuff. Content creation tools to AI agents. Rochelle, what are you talking about? Okay, well what I mean is I think that early generative AI, what are we talking about? That's where we are now. I feel like we're with, I think of AI, we're talking about humans, these are toddlers. They're like little toddlers. They can do some reading, they can read stuff, they can write some stuff, and they can draw, right? That's kind of what it's doing. So we're really early days, and so it's starting to grow up. And you might be impressed by it, but it's still pretty basic, right? So we're in the early AI, and what I have here is I've given you a list of some of the generative tools that I would, sort of a very short list, there are a lot more, but around writing tools and platforms. This was the first wave of AI. I don't know if anyone remembers like when Grammarly came out, and when a lot of things, and it was like, oh, and Jasper, and Write Sonic, and ooh, I can write something, I can do blog posts. Marketing is kind of on the cutting edge, I would say, of a lot of the AI tools because we're content creators, and that's the first area where AI really had its biggest impact. So what I've given you is kind of a little bit of a table. There are links to all of these things, and you can just go through and decide what you're doing. And the reason I've chosen these are like Writer's a really good budget one. It's $9 a month, so it's not super expensive. Sauder Write is great if you want to do a novel and you're doing something creative or a play, then I would say don't do Write Sonic because it's very businessy. You'd want a different tool for that. So some of these have different niches. So here you go. That's your list. I'm not going to go through each one. Images. That image is fake. That image was created by AI. It is not an image that ever existed. And this is the prompt for that image, that generated that image. Midjourney is a tool that was used to create this image here on the, I guess on your right. So this basically image was created. And as you can see, it's great if I am a photographer and I even know what the heck an f-stop is of 2.8 and blah, 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 blah. So one of the things you also need to understand is these tools work great for experts. They work really well if you have a lot of knowledge about the domain. You can do something and maybe get something pretty good, but the more you know, the better these tools will work. There are a lot of things. So Midjourney is the tool. I think it's not working over here. Let's go on this side. Come on. Okay, let's go. Let's go. What did I do? Okay. Huh? Yeah, let's just see. I'm just thinking, like, why is it not working? I just hit it. Okay, you hit it. Okay, great. So we have the diffusion models. Okay, why is this not working? Okay, let's go here. Okay, so we basically have a bunch of diffusion models here. Diffusion models are the engines behind images. So transformers tend to be words. Diffusion models tend to be what we use for images. I'm going to leave it at that. You don't need to know much more than that. But these are kind of the big ones. Midjourney is the one that I'd say is the sort of 800-pound gorilla, does really good realistic images. DALL-E 3 is OpenAI, and that's built into ChatGPT now. So it all is one thing. So a lot of people are like, Rochelle, what do you recommend? If you want it all in one, ChatGPT is actually not bad. It does images, it does text, it does a lot, doesn't do music, but it does a lot of other things. So, for one, not even a subscription anymore, you can just, for free, you can have access to that. Dream Studio is another model called Stable Diffusion, and so that is their sort of project. Adobe is in this place. So many of us have heard of Adobe. They have something called Firefly, where you can do a lot of AI images as well. And then finally, this is one you may not have heard of called Leonardo.ai. It actually is sort of this amazing, it's, I would say, an aggregate of a lot of different models that you can access all within one platform. So instead of having to go to different places and try different models, you can do it all there. So if you're doing images, definitely play around and look at some of these. Is this going to work? What am I doing here? OK, let's go. OK, oh, it's working now. OK, I guess I had to get close. I've given you a bunch of multimedia stuff. These are tools that are all kind of AI. I've listed here a variety of chatbots. These are all free, so these are like ChatGPT, Bing Chat, Gemini, Meta AI. Perplexity, a lot of people are really liking Perplexity.ai. It is one that when you do a search or when you do a prompt, it'll come back with answers and it'll have links to the sources where it drew that information from. So if you're doing citations and a variety of research, Perplexity.ai is a really great option because you now, for those hallucinations, you know exactly where it's drawing that information from. Right? So Claude is one is Anthropic. I don't believe it's available here in Canada right now. I keep saying, and then it's not. And a few more here that I've just listed that you might enjoy, like Jasper Chat, Chat Sonic. These are sort of some that are built into some of the writing tools as well. Music production, I got to tell you, like Udio just came out about a month ago. If you want to create a song, it'll create lyrics, it'll create the songs, it'll create everything with the click of a button. and you'll be blown away. If you want to create a jingle, say I want to create a jingle and I want it to be about blah, 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 these are some of the tools that people are using, right? Video production, same thing. A variety, I've given you a variety of different ones. Pictory.ai is kind of an all-in-one, does a lot of different things. It's not the best at anything, but again, if you're trying to pick a tool, because I'm always thinking about small businesses and, you know, gosh, you could be like, you know, death by, you know, what, 1,000 cuts by, you know, all these little subscription models. But definitely something to keep in mind. Now, what I realized I forgot to put here is there's another one. How many of us are doing like tutorials where you basically are onboarding or teaching people how to do something and you have to do a video or you have to do instructions? There's one called recordonce.com. And recordonce.com will actually allow you to record it. You can just ramble and it'll actually cut your video, cut out all the ums, put all the best parts together and make it a really good tutorial video. The other one is Guide, like the word guide, but with 2 Ds. So guidde.com. And Guide will also build both a video as well as step-by-step introductions with screenshots of all the steps that you've done and how you've done it. So for people who are like, I don't have time to do those tutorials because they're going to take a while. I know I've run a company where we've done lots of tutorials for like our support networks and things like that. We have some amazing tools. So think about that as well, okay? Okay, some prompts. So I thought, Rochelle, this is great, can you at least give us like some idea? I apologize, these are gonna be wordy slides that come up because there are a lot of words because I believe in really deep prompts. Some of them are gonna be short, but understand you can always make more of them. So let's say you have a business goal. Rochelle, I wanna do this, and I wanna break it down, and I want to have things that I want to have KPIs that I can measure to see how well I'm doing. And I want you to set this up on a, let's just say I want to set up a monthly goal, and I want you to break it down into every week, this is what I have to do. Well, what I'm going to give you here is basically a prompt. I'll break it down, but let's say you are an experienced XYZ expert, whatever that is. I want you to create an actionable XYZ roadmap for me. So that could be a marketing roadmap. That could be a sales roadmap. Whatever the case might be. You fill in the blanks, the XYZ, with what you think. I want this to be over the next 12 weeks, next month, next 48 hours. You set that sort of time horizon. You basically say, my goal is, and be very specific about what is the goal you want to achieve. What are you going to spend this time doing, right? And then give it some context. What are my time constraints? I can only spend 1 hour a week. I can only do da-da-da-da. I only have a budget of this much money, right? Like, give it everything that you think is a reason why you can't do it, right? Or why this is impossible, right? Put that in there. Then you say, after that, you say, okay, using that and the context, let's reverse engineer my goal into a plan, right? An actionable plan that I can follow to reach it, okay? So then you say, okay, I want you to give me 2 roadmaps. Always ask for more than one. That's the one thing. Don't always, like, I'm always asking, give me 10, give me 25. Because sometimes, like, 10 out of the 25 are crappy. But I kind of like this part in this one, and I like this part in that one. So always at least get 2 or multiple options. So 2 roadmaps. And then KPIs. I want to have weekly KPIs for, let's say, for each week should be quantifiable. Each of the hours, days, weeks, months, so like the smaller version of whatever you're doing of the roadmap should be formatted like this. And over here I have month 1, big goal. What's the big goal of the month? Okay, and what are the KPIs for the month? And then it breaks it down week by week by week by week by week, right? You hit enter, and it spits out something. Now this is when you come in as a human. You have to look at that plan and go, can I deliver on this? Does this make sense? Is this too much? Oh no, there's a weekend there where I'm gonna be going, we have a long weekend coming up. Oh, I can't do that because it's only gonna be a 4-day week, right? So you can start playing with the outcome, but the idea here is this would be the prompt I would put in. And just to make it easier, I also say, if I give you a goal that is not action-oriented, so I give ChatGPT a goal that's not action-oriented, please tell me, try again. I need something that's action-oriented, something that actually is action-oriented. Now, for fun, I've given you a link here in the handouts and an example of that exact prompt for my Mosaic Accelerator, so you can click on it and you can see exactly the conversation I had with ChatGPT. Other ones, website content, I have one here. You can do customer segmentation. How many of us want to know, like, what are our customers doing? You can upload files now to ChatGPT. One big caveat is take out any personal identifiable information. So don't upload your customers' names, but you can actually put customer 1 through 500. And then you can upload it and say, here are the results that I've seen. Can you please review it and tell me what trends are you seeing, or which customers are the ones that are buying the most, or which ones are the ones that are engaging the most, and what do we know about them based on the data I've given you? And then you can keep asking more and more questions about that Excel spreadsheet. If you're using Google Analytics, I'm exporting from Google Analytics all the time, going, okay, what happened, what was new, which page is working well, because Google Analytics exports to a CSV, and you can upload that CSV, that Excel file, back into ChatGPT and go, okay, I just want to ask you a bunch of stuff about what happened over the last month, right? Forget Excel, yeah, right? No, I mean, Excel is great. No, Excel is great. I spend 10 years using Excel, but if that's not your thing, you have options. Target audience behaviors, how are they behaving? What are we seeing? Who's downloading what content? Who's engaging? What does that look like? You can actually, so these are just some like 1-paragraph prompts to get you started in thinking about that. I'm not gonna go into each one. And then the last one, sort of like, what are my key customer pain points? What are the pains that they're envisioning? What is our value proposition? It can even do that competitive analysis. And again, you'll notice I have highlighted using Bing to conduct your research, do a competitive analysis. So you know that it actually is going out there and finding real things in the world to do a competitive analysis. SWOT analysis, whatever, it knows about SWOT. If you don't want to do prompts, if that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, there are things called custom GPTs. And custom GPTs, there's a GPT store, like the App Store that we all know about. There are custom GPTs where other people have created very specific sort of purpose-built chatbots in certain areas. So you're doing a proposal. There's a proposal chatbot that will actually ask you a bunch of questions about what do you want to propose and who's it for and blah, 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 and then it'll spit out a proposal. There's a grant writing bot. There is, I mean, there's all, like, and again, does this replace you? No. Like, I would never recommend that you just take the answer, copy and paste it, and send it to somebody. But it probably will get you that first draft a lot faster, and then you can make it your own and tweak it and make it say what you want to say, right? It may also highlight things you never thought of. That's what I find a lot of times. I'm like, oh, ooh, that's a good idea. I didn't think of that, right? So GPTs, they're free now. Everybody has access to them. There's even one, the negotiator. For those of you who are trying to negotiate a salary, there's one that will actually negotiate with you, and you can say, here's what I want for my salary, and it'll push back, and then it'll evaluate your answers and tell you what you did well and what you didn't do well, right? And on your phone, you can do it with voice. And on the desktop, you can do it with voice. So you can just talk to it and ask questions, right? So it's not just all typing. These are the things that it actually will empower you to do. Data analysis, create content, do videos. There's a tool that I used. There are tools for videos. You want to do a video, it'll cut out the ums, the uhs, the bad things. It'll put the subtitles, all those wonderful subtitles that we see on TikTok. It automatically does that. You then can edit them if it got it wrong, so they have a text file. You can, if you get rid of certain parts of the video, of the text, it'll cut it out of the video automatically. There's lots of things we can do now, so it's not really, and that frees you up then to do the really big thinking, the big stuff that you need to do to really grow your business, right? So you're not spending all your time on operation and doing things, but you're actually being really strategic. So there we go. Ethical considerations. Yes, Rochelle. Oh, that's an email. Okay, let's start with that. You definitely need to start with maintaining a level of human oversight. So a big part of this is I believe AI right now, and I can only speak to right now, is an incredible assistant. It is an incredible tool that works well with you. And as I said earlier, also the more you know, the more you will get out of it. When it first came out in November 2022, I used it, I was like blown away. And this was like ChatGPT 3.5, which most of us now realize is like a lobotomized version of ChatGPT. Like its brain has been cut out, like no one would ever want to use 3.5 it now. Again, so human interaction, transparency and explainability. Be clear in business how you're using AI. This is the one thing to keep in mind. If you're using it, just be really clear and transparent and make sure you understand what's going on. If customers are interacting with AI, if you're using it, let them know so they know exactly what's going on. It seems very clear, like you're like, duh, Rochelle, of course, but there have been a lot of people who are trying to like pretend like it's a real human, and it's not, right? And that can just really, really come back at you in a bad way. Accountability and responsibility, figure out who's accountable when things go wrong, have a clear, like things may go wrong, nothing's perfect. So understand that when things happen, how are you gonna handle that? You know, like I said, it's also crisis management. When things go wrong, what does that look like? We should all have a crisis management plan. AI is one of those things. Bias, we've talked about bias. I've already talked about it. It's a reflection of us. So a lot of the things that are in those bodies are fairly biased. Just be aware of that and try to maybe start adding your own content. The big fear that they're having is by 2026, so in 2 years, we're gonna actually run out of data to train these models that isn't or that hasn't been touched by AI. In other words, in 2026, the data it's gonna be getting is data that has already been created by AI, so it's kind of like a loop of stuff. It's spit out is the new stuff that's going back in, right? So it's saying by 2026 we will run out of like original, you know, human data. So again, that's just something to keep in mind, right? Data privacy, again, make sure that when you're using these tools that you understand their privacy, you understand what information you're sharing with them, and if need be, like obfuscate it, just give another name, generic names or things like that, that it doesn't really get out there in the wild. Makes sense, of course, all those things. Autonomy, how much decision-making power should be given to AI? This is something you want to think about, right? They seem super powerful, but be careful not to just hand everything over to AI. That is back to that human oversight at that bottom. Quality assurance, when you're doing AI processes, these are new processes. So what does the review process look like, right? Now that it's going through AI, how many people are going to see it? Who gets to sign off on it? How do we make sure that it's validated and verified? These are all kind of new things, right? When it was just like the intern, you knew it was the intern who wrote it, and that was kind of like it. But now if the intern's using AI and maybe they're words from a competitor that might come at you later on, IP gets a little sort of interesting at this point, right? Who owns the IP? This is a big question. Do I own the IP? Does the AI own the IP? Does the software own the IP? If the AI has created it, it could be a combination of stuff that's already out there. So does that mean it actually isn't even protectable? I don't know, right? And dependency and over-reliance. I also think we have to be careful about just, oh yeah, I'll send it to AI. Oh yeah, I'll send it to AI. And eventually we're gonna have really weak muscles because we will not know how to do this on our own. I always use the example of, at one point, the electricity at our supermarket went out and they had to shut down the whole store because the cashiers could not figure out how to give you change because they're used to the computer telling them, right? It's like, I give you $10 and it's like, oh God, like how to, okay, maths, right? So over-reliance, just be careful. And then, as I said, human oversight, making sure that we are always sort of in the loop, at least at this point, because I think things make a lot of sense, right? Future, where's this all going? Voice, 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 voice. I think we're gonna be getting away from a lot of written text. So what does that mean in terms of voice discovery? And when I say that, I mean, I'm gonna be asking things and I'm gonna be saying, hey, give me some information about X, Y, Z. So what does that mean for businesses? What does that mean for marketing? What does that mean for SEO? What does that mean for search? Like all of this is a little bit in flux right now because how will people find out about what I'm doing? What's that gonna look like, right? And I know I have a now 12-year-old nephew and he's had an iPad since he was 2. He knew how to ask Siri about the Lego movie before he could actually type, right? Like literally, it was like, Siri, tell me when is a Lego movie going to come out? And he was like, and I could hardly understand what he said, and Siri understood him, right? But there's a generation that's coming up, and they're not about typing. They're not about like, this is not their thing. Their thing is, I'm going to go and I'm going to basically just ask, right? So what does that search and discovery look like now, right? AI agents, I mentioned that before. As I said, I think right now we're at the sort of the toddler stage, and a lot of things do one thing or a couple of things really well. We're going to get the agents are kind of like, I'm going to say, the teenagers, where you basically now can send them out and say, okay, AI, I want you to do a task, and it will go out, it will do tasks, and those tasks will be more complicated, complex. It will use different software pieces. It will do different things all at once, right? So instead of just giving me an answer, it can actually go out, go check the web, do a search, figure out what needs to be done, write the social media posts, sort of show it to you, you say yes, approval, and then it goes and it actually posts it to Instagram, right? Instead of you doing all of those steps. That's just an example. So it'll be sort of stepped, and it will also be usually technologies. So not just one technology, but multiple ones. So I think that we'll probably see that in the next 18 months. More agents that will go out there, and you give it a task, and it will figure out how to do the task. Again, I think enhanced business intelligence, meaning we're going to see a lot of things where we're going to get a lot of market intelligence, business intelligence in real time. So now there will be tools, and it's kind of a little bit linked to the agents, but imagine if it's like, Google Alerts, some of you might be familiar with, where you can like say if something happens, send me an email, but now imagine it's not just an email saying, oh, there's a new result on Google. It's like, no, here are the latest trends that are happening, and this is what you should be paying attention to. And this is how you should shift your strategies and your business plans and things like that. If you're interested, there is a really incredible tool called Gummy-Search, gummy-search.com, like gummy, G-U-M-M-Y. And they do some really interesting things for Reddit. So if you're interested, they will look at trends on Reddit and talk about what the trends are happening, and they use AI to figure out what are the trends, what's growing, which subreddits are growing fastest, and things like that. So there's a lot of trend analysis stuff that AI is really good at. Okay, also personalized customer experiences. Wouldn't it be cool if you went to a website and the website gave you exactly what you wanted, and you didn't have to actually like dig through or search or browse or go through all this crappy marketing context? What does that mean for marketers? I don't know, but I think, wouldn't it be cool if literally the website was more of a chatbot experience? Like I come, I know you do something, give me all the information, Rochelle likes really loud clothing, give me all the stuff that makes sense for someone who likes loud clothing, right? Personalized experience, so things based on your customer behavior, so the history of what you've done in the past. We see some of this in education. It's often called adaptive learning there, where based on what students have done or how well they've done, we give them different pieces of content to learn. Well, imagine if that's out in the real world, just around our experiences, right? Predicting what people need. So again, AI is much better at predicting based on what you've done in the past. It can say, okay, I think this is what you're going to do. I think this is what's happening. So being better at predicting things and just making it a much better user experience, a much better customer experience. Customer service is better, right? So those are the areas I think we're going to see. I've given you a link to a really interesting article here, and this is basically about marketing specifically, but I like it, where they talk about sort of zero, first, and second order effects of what AI can look like. And the only real thing I want to highlight is, right now we're kind of in the zero order effects, maybe some of the first where things are happening, but what is that going to mean like in the next generation? What's that going to mean? And one thing that really is coming is data becomes first-class marketing. That's the point I was making earlier. If you have original data, customer data, that's gold, right? And if it hasn't been touched by AI, wow, that's really worth a lot now. So your data strategy is going to be a lot more important as we move forward, right? Because remember that 2026 that I was telling you about? If you actually have original data, now you can sell it, right? So now it's an asset, right? So something to keep in mind there. Key takeaways, these are really things, there's a natural progression, right? we've gone from punch cards, if anyone remembers that in this room, all the way now to basically, software development and AI. We will continue to evolve, right? And I think it's pretty important, and we're pretty good at it. We're pretty good at adapting. It is a collaborative tool right now, and I think that's the best way to look at it, as a collaborative tool that can be a great collaboration, a great brainstormer, a great assistant to what you're doing. There are definitely ethical issues. We have to keep the guardrails on, and we should all be aware of those and try to participate as much as possible, because we're the ones using it, and if we leave it to someone else is going to define it for us, and I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. It's pretty much, potential is uncharted. I couldn't tell you where it's going to go. I'm excited by it, but it could be anything. There are lots of opportunities, and each one of you has experiences and probably a perspective that's different than me, and I'd love to hear where you think something like this could be used. And finally, we want to be, think about societal implications. There are things like people are saying jobs will be lost, right? Because now we can do things in a much better way. Yes, but you can also retrain and have some new skills. I remember I started teaching social media courses in 2009 when people were asking me, like, what is Twitter? Like, why should I use it, right? There were no social media managers or coordinators. Those jobs didn't exist in the early 2000s, right? Now they're like a dime a dozen. Every company has one. There will be new jobs. There are going to be new things. There will probably be AI ethicists, right? People who are going to be like thinking about the ethics of AI. There are going to be like all kinds of things that are going to be supporting these activities. So new jobs will come, but we definitely want to think about what are the societal impacts. We talked about energy. There's definitely, from a sustainability perspective, these things take a lot of power, energy. That's why chip development is so important. Data centers are sucking up energy, and it's kind of behind the scenes. Nobody sees it. But we're talking about environment, climate change, and everything else. So those are real problems. We need to be more efficient around this. But we're early days. So hopefully that optimization will happen soon. I've given you a bunch of Gen AI resources here that I recommend. So obviously ChatGPT. I actually just this week launched something called Circles of AI. It is an online community where I'm just asking people to come together and let's talk about this and what they're learning and what's happening. So if you're interested, there's a link there. We're literally just, I announced it 2 days ago. So we're just signing people up who are interested. We're gonna have circles like a women's circle, a nonprofit circle, a marketing circle. So different topics, a teen and youth circle to talk about these AI issues, and you can be part of multiple circles. So it's not like you have to pick one, but I think sometimes having a community around a sort of a shared experience or a shared journey is important. I've given you a couple of the people I follow in the space who I think are just really good influencers from a business and marketing and just high level what's happening in the space perspective. A lot of those are like YouTubers. 50 plus AI tools for small businesses, so that's something to keep in mind if you're a small business. There is a course on LinkedIn Learning that I think is a great one to use if you have access to it. If you don't, if I remember correctly, most public libraries have access to LinkedIn Learning, so you can go to your public library and get access to those courses. And then a couple of productivity tools. Crystal is a very funky, weird one, but I kind of always have to bring it up. Crystal is an AI tool that you could put Crystal onto Rochelle's, it'll go to my LinkedIn account, and based on what I've posted and the comments I've made, it'll tell you what my personality type is. Freaky, but actually pretty cool when you're doing cold calling and you're trying to reach out to people and figure out what's the best way to approach them. Yeah. Forecaster is a really great one as well. It is a subscription model, sort of AI planning, financial planning tool that will help you plan out your forecasts. Well, yeah, I can do that in Excel, but what's really cool is it has sort of something where you can say, well, if this happens or if that happens, and it can do a lot of what if scenarios, and then change your numbers based on those what if things without you having to like adjust all your formulas. So super cool, right? Sturpy is another sort of financial modeling, as in FinMark, so they will predict it. And then also some AI presentation makers, right? So again, I still am using PowerPoint. I'm old school. I'm old and old school. But I would say at the end of the day, there's like Gamma, there's Tome. Literally, you can give it a topic, a prompt, and it will give you like 12 slides with images and everything else to just build your presentation. First a draft, it can be excellent. And if you don't like it, if you don't like the design, I've used them, I'm like, I don't like the design, but I think they have some really good content, then put it in your favorite tool that you normally use, right? So some of these can be used really well. here are my QR codes. I want to thank you for your time. This is LinkedIn, the slides, and if you want to do the Circle AI to join, I appreciate you listening to me. I hope that that's a couple of nuggets you've walked away with, and that, that makes a bit of sense. And I'm way over, but there you go. Yeah, there you go.